Hello and welcome to Marketing Global Edition with me, Jasmine Montgomery.
And me, Piers 𝐻𝐬𝐬.
So I have a question for you, Piers.
You go on then.
Why did Saudi Arabia just buy one of the world's largest gaming companies?
I think the more pertinent question, Jasmine, is why are you asking me?
Because you are Piers 𝐻𝐻𝐬, branding God. It's why our millions of listeners queue up every week to listen to you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, right. No, very funny. I don't think so. But I am actually quite interested in this. More interested in this than buying Life of a Showgirl on vinyl.
All right. Well, yes, hopefully this is one that you'll enjoy talking about. I think this is up your street. So what we're talking about today is a deal that has really sort of excited Wall Street and the gaming world. The Saudi Public Investment Fund, known as PIF, has just agreed to acquire Electronic Arts, referred to as EA throughout much of the world and this podcast, for $55 billion. Now, It should be said that, PIF are buying it alongside Silver Lake and Affinity Partners, which, of course, as you all know, is owned and run by Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, just to add complexity.
And EA is the home of what everyone used to know as FIFA. I think it's like EA 25 or something now.
EA Sports FC.
Yes, that's the official title. We also call it FIFA. But The Sims, Apex Legends, there's loads. There's pretty legendary games, actually. It's huge, it's big.
Yeah, and what I want to know is why?
Well, I think the answer is pretty obvious: money. I'm sorry, but gaming is like a massive, huge, enormous growth sector.
So, dear listener, you probably already know this, listening to Piers and me debate things. But Piers always goes for the clear, down to earth answer, right? You know, if it looks like a duck and smells like a duck, it's probably a duck. Whereas I always think it's not a duck, it's a unicorn. So, I think that there is a much deeper story here about reputation, power, and distraction.
Oh, well, let's find out. Okay, so today we're going to ask the question, why did PIF just buy EA?
We will. So let's start with the basics. Okay, so who really are PIF and why do they suddenly want to own the world's biggest sports and simulation gaming empire?
Okay, well, as you mentioned, PIF is Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. Essentially, it's the state's investment arm, and it is chaired by their crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. It manages, get this, close to $1 trillion. Huge, isn't it? And it's the driving engine behind their Vision 2030, where they're rebuilding Saudi Arabia. And it's also the plan to diversify away from oil. So the economy obviously has been, they've got a lot of oil, but they're being very clever in diversifying for the future, and they're building lots of new industries.
Yes, and they have talked about focusing on specific industries they call industries of the future or something. Gaming is one of them, alongside, I think, renewable energy, tourism, and technology.
Yeah, exactly. They've already bought the Savvy Games Group, which bought the mobile gaming company Scopely. I think that was like $5 billion, very small compared to EA. And they've also invested in Nintendo, Capcom, Take-Two, and now, of course, EA.
Yeah, so this is clearly the culmination of a much bigger strategy, really, to turn Saudi Arabia into a global gaming hub. Who knew?
Exactly. Right. Well, look, let's deal with the numbers first. The global games industry is already worth, get this, Jasmine, more than music and film combined. That is around, it's huge. $300 billion and growing fast. And by 2030, analysts expect over 1 billion active gamers on the planet. So from a portfolio perspective, it makes complete sense. You're buying into the largest entertainment medium on the planet with recurring digital revenue and decades-long intellectual property. It's a no-brainer.
So you see this as a rational business move, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's diversification done well. I mean, EA's business model, particularly its live service games like what was FIFA, EA Sports and Apex Legends, it always just brings in continuous income because it's not a one-off buy. it's like monthly, like it's almost like a retainer relationship with the consumer, where they are paying for things. And for a sovereign wealth fund trying to replace oil income, it's pretty irresistible, in my opinion.
I mean, I do think that, your point about you sort of got the intellectual property, you've got the characters, you've got the game brands, people can turn those, you're right, they can turn those into income streams for a long, long time. I mean, people can make, now these days are making movies out of games and then all the merch and so on. So it's a terrific way of having a future revenue stream, but it's also a great way of owning attention, isn't it?
Which is a really big thing, right? So oil powered the 20th century, but attention powers the 21st century. And gaming owns attention better than any other medium. It's interactive, it is sociable, it is monetizable. And from PIF's point of view, it's digital infrastructure.
Okay, so I don't disagree with the economics. I don't disagree with the fact that this is a terrific deal commercially, but I think there's something deeper going on, something cultural, something about the soul of a nation. And please forgive me, I'm sniffing and coughing, I've got a cold, apologies. But Saudi Arabia is in the middle of a huge project, an image transformation, right? So for decades, its global reputation was built on two things, really: oil and Islam. It is the home of the holy sites, and that's a phenomenal thing. But now it wants to be seen as youthful, creative, forward-looking. Gaming delivers that in one stroke.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, I'm just agreeing with you, and I find that really odd.
I'm sorry, that must be very uncomfortable
I'm a bit prone because it's like we're just both agreeing when you do it more deeply than I. But I think, what you're saying is it's more about brand Saudi than the balance sheet.
Yes, partly, but it was also about social psychology, right? So it goes deeper. So 2/3 of Saudis are under 30. Gaming is entertainment, but it's also escapism, community, aspiration. So I think investing billions in it isn't only about GDP. I think it's also about keeping a young population inspired, connected, and frankly, occupied.
Aha, the opiate of the masses argument.
More like bread and circuses, Piers, or in its original Latin, panem et circenses.
Sorry, everyone. She often goes into Latin, but anyway, go on, carry on.
No, it's very interesting, this. So Roman satirical poet Juvenal, in around 100 CE, he had this brilliant poem. He talked about, so I'm just going to quote from it for a second because I think it's super relevant even today. Already long ago, from when we sold our vote to no man, the people have abdicated our duties. For the people who once upon a time handed out military command, high civil office, legions, everything, now restrains itself and anxiously hopes for just two things: bread and circuses. In ancient Rome, you built amphitheaters. I think in modern Saudi Arabia, you build esports arenas.
And multiplayer gaming platforms.
Yeah, it's social stabilization through entertainment. It's something that people like 𝐓𝐢𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬 in Singapore knew. If you gave everybody a fridge and a TV, they would, accept a reasonably authoritarian, government system. So it's a form, entertainment of the masses is a form of soft power. It's a soft power internally. But I think there's something else going on here too. I think it's also, this buy is also about a form of soft power on the global stage.
Okay, so what exactly is soft power for everyone, and how does a country acquire it?
So soft power, in a kind of geopolitical sense, is such an interesting concept. It comes from Joseph Nye, a Harvard political scientist who coined the term in the 1980s. And he defined it as the ability to shape the preferences of others through attraction rather than coercion or payment. So unlike hard power, military force, sanctions, trade deals, Mr. Trump, soft power works through kind of culture, values, reputation, ideas.
Okay. Yeah, so in Britain we have it, right? We have it based on things like the BBC, the monarchy, James Bond.
Yeah, I think in America before Trump, it was the American dream, right? It was Hollywood, it was Harvard, it was hamburgers. And in France, it was kind of fashion and haute couture and infidelity.
Can it be created if it doesn't exist now, though?
Well, I think that is the million-dollar question. I mean, not instantly and not just with money. You know, you can buy visibility of your country, but you can't buy credibility and you can't buy culture overnight. So I think countries that have built soft power have done so through a really consistent narrative and exportable culture, exportable brands, ideas. So I think somebody like, it's like South Korea did it over 20 years, and they actually, they've got kind of K-movies, K-beauty, K-pop, right? So they've really they've actually done it so kind of consciously. They've been turning national pride into kind of global fandom. And I think, they're doing it in a kind of way that perhaps was inspired by Japan in the 80s and 90s, who were exporting quality and creativity and innovation when you think of Walkman and Nintendo and Toyota and so on.
Okay, but I mean, what if a country, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, what if a country's human rights record, political image, or values contradict its storytelling? Doesn't the soft power effect weaken? Because that, I think, is Saudi's challenge today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Saudi, I think that this will only work if Saudi's kind of social transformation matches its technological transformation, its transformation in things like real estate and so on. So it is going to need to transform things like human rights, or at least its reputation, both the reality and the reputation of what it does in terms of human rights. And, it's trying to build its own kind of version of its reputation. And gaming, I think, gives it a global stage that in a way is yes, it's youthful and scalable, but what's really interesting about it too is it is non-political.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's quite a few golf brands who are growing miracle cities out of sand, but also trying to brand themselves.
Yes. So I think what's really interesting is looking at, if you look at UAE, Dubai is all about kind of functioning globalism, right? It's about a platform for globalization that works brilliantly. Qatar, as we've seen recently in the news, geopolitically, very much about kind of cultural influence through intellect and through kind of mediation in foreign affairs. Saudi Arabia, very much about kind of transformation at scale, huge scale.
I think all three use soft power as like a strategy. It's not an accident, but their audiences definitely differ. So
Yeah.
the UAE speaks to business and lifestyle nomads.
Yeah.
Huge growth.
Totally.
Qatar speaks to political and cultural elites nowadays, actually.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And Saudi, I think, speaks to youth and pop culture.
Well, who'd have thought it? I mean, 20 years ago, somebody had said, hey, guess what? Saudi is repositioning itself as all about, youth and pop culture. Fascinating. But definitely, if that is what it's doing, then gaming makes a lot of sense in a number of ways, right?
And it's really interesting. So, when someone in Sao Paulo or Seoul logs into EA Sports FC, previously known as FIFA,
Yeah.
and plays in a virtual Saudi stadium, that's sort of subconscious normalization, isn't it? It's branding through pixels.
Yeah, but I think there are some inherent contradictions in this because, it's just gaming itself is a problematic space, I think, for somewhere like Saudi. I mean, EA's portfolio, it's not just about football. One of its biggest titles is The Sims, a lifetime simulation game where players design homes, they build families, and they live out really individualistic lives.
I used to love The Sims. Years and years ago, I used to play it, and you build cities, you build your own world, right?
Yeah.
It's changed so much anyway. But the whole point of The Sims really is freedom. It's freedom to create anything you want, any identity, any relationship.
Yeah.
Players can marry who they want. They can change gender. They could live, on their own. That's, liberal freedom is what's made the game fantastic for like 20, I think more than 20 years actually. And it's exactly what collides with Saudi Arabia's conservative social codes actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be a real cultural dilemma for EA. Do you release The Sims unedited in Saudi and risk moral outrage at home, or do you Do you censor it? Do you face a global backlash for compromising creative freedom? I mean, either way, you're going to upset somebody. What do they do? Do we no longer have, you can walk around The Sims in a bikini, as I understand it. How is that going to play in Saudi? Or do you have, The Sims Riyadh edition, where your character dreams of opening a cafe, but needs a ministry permit and a cousin with connections to make it happen?
Oh dear. Okay, so even EA Sports FC, which looks apolitical, hides a thorny issue, right? The Ultimate Team mode. What about that? So, where players buy digital packs of footballers. I've got two boys who play this quite a lot, and they buy a lot of packs of footballers, but it's had criticism for years.
Right, because it's gambling, right? So, I mean, you don't know what you're getting when you buy them. You spend real money on a virtual pack that might contain a superstar, or maybe it's nobody. You might get Mbappe, or you might not. Millions of players, especially teenagers, just keep paying for just one more try.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It is not officially gambling, but it does come very close to it. That is a fine line. They're playing for the chance of a reward. Interestingly, several countries have already investigated and banned it.
Because of its
mechanic.
Proximity to gambling? Yeah. And the thing is, under Islamic law, gambling or maisir is strictly forbidden. And because of some of the things that are inherent, I think, in the virtual pack concept, the idea of being rewarded based on chance and so on. So, there's a real irony that a Saudi-owned company could be earning billions from something that would be illegal inside Saudi Arabia itself.
And there's the tension between global capitalism and local values, Jasmine. Yes. You can try to separate the two legally, but symbolically they still collide.
And I think that tension is so much the real story here. This is about a nation trying to modernize at speed, but to be both devout and digital at the same time, to stay true to what, part of its soul, which is really important in Saudi, but also to embrace digital and some aspects of globalization. It's a tough tightrope.
It's interesting. It's a kingdom negotiating who it wants to be in real life and on screen.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's fast forward to 2030, Jasmine. What happens?
Well, I think best case scenario is, Saudi Arabia becomes the world capital of esports in a good way. Riyadh hosts global tournaments. Young Saudis really start to work in design and coding. I think, as I said earlier, I think it really is the best case scenario, I think, is predicated on Saudi also achieving levels of social transformation in terms of women's rights, human rights, etc., human rights that really match its technological transformation so that it doesn't have a credibility gap. But, the country genuinely earns great cultural credibility through this.
Okay. But so base case, it's another high value asset, profitable, but not transformative.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the one that you were kind of talking about in the beginning is, they can just be a shareholder and nothing really happens. It's just that's base case. But I think worst case is that they engage slowly or quickly in creative interference, in cultural censorship. There's a backlash from all sides. Developers walk out. Western players start to boycott. Saudi conservatives, critique the whole thing. And it turns into what started as a sort of soft power play turns into a major backlash, both at home and abroad. That is the worst case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Once that perception shifts from them being an investor to them being a controller, then the trust will evaporate, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it's an interesting question, what would make it work, right?
Well, I think, as ever, transparency and independence. Yeah. I think if you can keep EA's creative teams free, that's what makes them so brilliantly, and publicly state that the company will operate under international standards, not political direction, then you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there are elements that I agree with you that kind of non-interference is probably the best way forward. If they did interfere, I mean, I guess I could see there being an opportunity to reform monetization within gaming, which as a parent, 95% of whose income goes to in-game purchases in these flipping games. I would welcome Saudi Arabia, leading the industry in cleaning up exploitative in-game spending because it doesn't fit with Sharia law. Remove the gambling element, cap spending for minors, make it transparent. I mean, maybe they could throw their weight about in a way that people would see as positive.
We could turn a religious prohibition into a moral innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, instead of being accused of hypocrisy, they could say, look, we're re-engineering gaming to be fair. I mean, that would be interesting.
Good God. Maybe we're both right, Jasmine. It is a commercial masterstroke, but it's also a cultural experiment.
Yeah, I mean, this is a $1 trillion state learning to speak the language of youth culture and discovering that country branding, a bit like oil, needs careful refining.
Of course, the real answer may be that MBS, who is reportedly a huge gaming fan and plays Call of Duty, just hasn't reached prestige level 1000, so he's decided to buy the game.
You see, 𝐼𝐸𝐻𝐸, that's why I ask you these questions. That's why I turn to you with my big questions of the day, because in the end, you have the true answer. Oh, wisdom he has.
Oh, yes. Millions of listeners. Thank you, Jasmine.
Are millions of listeners. That's right. Because this podcast obviously has millions of listeners.
Right, Mum.
If you have been one of the millions listening today, thank you so much for listening. That's it for Marketing Global Edition today. We will be back next week.
Lovely. Back next week. See ya. Bye. Nice to speak. Goodbye.
Marketing Global Edition is sponsored by Adsy, the ad generator for small businesses that serves you effective and affordable ads in seconds. And by 7 Brands, the international advertising and branding agency that has worked with clients around the world from Coca-Cola to Facebook.